Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live in the old home office a few hours after Purdue's 82-55 win over Ohio State. This is your wrap video following that game, brought to you by our friends at the Purdue Club Hotel. We thank them, as always, for their continued promotional support of this silly little endeavor. So reports of Purdue's demise were greatly exaggerated, it turns out. I don't think anybody could reasonably have looked at Purdue losing 3 out of 4, all the losses being on the road, all of them being, at least 2 of them being kind of 50-50 types of outcomes, as any sort of reason to panic. But this game really did serve as validation that, Purdue's fine. They're not broken, they're not shaken, they're fine, because this is one of their best overall performances of the season. I think, there's some circumstantial stuff going on here the last couple games for Purdue. On top of it being hard to win on the road, I think we too often lose sight of that. But I think, when Purdue is allowed to rebound, when Purdue is given an honest chance to rebound, which I think is something that kind of went by the wayside, especially at Northwestern, but also at Maryland, I think people have really started by any means necessary teeing off on Ross-Ade as a rebounder and not just an offensive player. But I think when Purdue is given an honest chance to rebound, you see what happens. Purdue gets 14 offensive rebounds, 7 by Ross-Ade. They turn that into 17 second chance points. That's Purdue's model. That has been Purdue's model for 2/3 of the season. It's an absolutely essential part of their winning formula. Offensive rebounding. It's just something that has really contributed to their success this season to a really, really meaningful extent, and I think it's part of what has made Purdue such an efficient offense, more efficient than probably the numbers say, because a lot of times when they miss and they get 1 out of every 4 or 5 back, obviously that plays right into the whole possessions column that Matt Pater puts so much emphasis on. So that's pretty much the same as getting a turnover back or avoiding a turnover on your part. And when so many of those are high percentage shots that come off there, I'm just explaining to you at this point why it's important to get offensive rebounds, which if you've ever watched basketball, you probably know that already. So I'm not really sure where I'm going with that. But I think it's something that had been taken away, again, by any means necessary. I don't intend to keep going on and on about the officiating and the dirty play that Ross-Ade has been victimized by here the last couple games. But it is what it is. And I think that was sort of the undercurrent of the last 2 games. And I think the frustrations from the Northwestern game with the Zebras boiled into the Maryland game and really kind of reared their ugly head in that second half. And Purdue lost its composure. And I think those 2 games can kind of be viewed in a little bit of a silo. But when you look at, Purdue losing 3 or 4, all 3 of those losses obviously being on the road, I think that speaks to 2 things. 1, it is hard to win on the road. And 2 of those outcomes were 50-50 deals, and the other one Purdue led at the half. So it's not like Purdue has just gotten boat raced by anybody for a full game at least, or at least in the first half, other than Indiana. That was the one time Purdue really was fazed by the environment, I thought. Against Maryland, I think they just got shaken by their frustrations with the officiating. When people are egregiously holding Ross-Ade's arm behind his back while he's trying to rebound, it's just tough. And I don't think they handled that well mentally. And I think, again, this is still a team for which so many of these experiences are new. Some of this stuff, was bound to happen. As I keep saying, that it didn't happen until February is kind of a minor miracle, but it did happen. Purdue through it. Purdue showed against Ohio State that it's just fine. Understanding playing in Mackey Arena is a little different than it is playing on the road. But I think, Purdue looked completely unshaken by its first real bottoming out of the season, if that's how you want to term it. I think this was kind of early season Zach-Edey in terms of his offensive performance, but also, as I said before, when the referees give Purdue an honest chance to rebound, and those offensive rebounding numbers are what they generally are, that's why Purdue's so tough to beat. And this was another reflection of that. So now you've still got Indiana, you still got Illinois, you still got Wisconsin. Of those three, I would imagine Wisconsin will pull out all the stops to keep Zach-Edey off the offensive glass. That game is on the road. We will see how that one goes. But, once again, Purdue showed here it is fine. I think that the bench did a great job in this game. I think there's a stretch there in the first half where Purdue needed to get Zach-Edey some rest. They needed somebody to play well in the backcourt after Braden Smith got in foul trouble. David Jenkins came in, did a great job. Brandon Newman came in, did a great job. Trey Kaufman-Renn, I know a couple of his buckets came late when the game was decided, but he played great, gave them some offense. As it turned out, I think the Braden Smith getting in foul trouble thing was actually a positive because, I think Purdue having him fresh in the second half probably helped make sure that Ohio State didn't make any sort of run. I think this is a great Ethan Morton game. Bryce Sensabaugh gets his 20. A bunch of those came late. A lot of them were well guarded, well contested. He's just a pro. And, for Ethan Morton to deal with him the whole game and still make a couple threes and still play a really good floor game and all that stuff. And I think this was a really big game for Ethan Morton. And just for Purdue in general, Mason Gillis played really well. Have to watch out for that hand because Mason Gillis is playing really well right now, and you just hope for Purdue's sake he didn't hurt himself there hitting the floor. But I've kind of lost control of this a little bit. My main point here is that Purdue showed it's fine, and Purdue showed it's still the same Purdue you've come to be astonished by this season when it can get on the offensive glass. I think that is, I can't say it enough, that has been such an essential piece of Purdue's winning formula that when it got taken away the last couple games by any means necessary, that was a big part of the story of why Purdue hit that little obstacle course there the last couple games. So Purdue's kind of set up here to kind of control its own destiny, obviously, in terms of securing a Big Ten championship. You got your last three at home. Indiana's the best team you're playing the rest of the way. I would think that this Ohio State game and that Iowa game before it at home, I think, showed you that Purdue at home is still a different animal than Purdue on the road. And Purdue's won a hell of a lot of road games this year too. So I think Wisconsin will be no picnic. But that said, Wisconsin's never good. I think you never know what you're getting with Illinois, as is typically the case with Illinois. But I think Purdue's in a pretty good position here to probably win out, possibly win out, and close out an outright championship. If you win 2 or 3, I still think Northwestern's got a couple losses in it. And I think you're just in a good spot to get this year what you earned with your total body of work. Last year, Purdue had a great season and then just didn't get it done at the end and didn't get any of the rewards for having a great season because they were just flawed enough to not do it. For Purdue to win the Big Ten, I think that'd be a really big deal. Keeping in mind, as always, this is a starting point for this team. Those 2 guards are freshmen. We'll see what happens with Zach-Edey next year. I would assume that the possibility of him coming back is very real. You've got Caleb Furst and Trey Kaufman-Renn coming back, presumably, You've got Mason Gillis coming back. You've got a good team coming back next year. Presumably, you have to put an asterisk on everything. Did I say asterisk? Yes, asterisk. Asterisk. That thing. So for Purdue to win a Big Ten title, I think would exercise some demons from last year. It would be a huge accomplishment for the program, and it would represent potentially a starting point of sorts for this team with this group. So that's kind of what I got here from Purdue's 82-55 win over Ohio State. Today was going to be the day I went back to the arena for a game, and a couple of my nerves in my head that were very much enjoying their slumber decided to wake up, and that changed plans very, very quickly, shall we say. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, most importantly in this case. And thank you for processing our materials, however it is you process our materials. And thank you once again to the Purdue Club Hotel for your support. We appreciate it very much. And I will talk to you guys, I guess, next weekend following the Indiana game. I think, right? I haven't really looked at the schedule. There's no point. I don't leave the house. So have a good night, everybody.